Writer E. Jean Carroll will testify in the second damages trial against former President Trump, who was found to have sexually abused and defamed her last year. You see how they wrote that?
Yeah.
The implication, of course, being that last year, Donald Trump sexually assaulted a woman.
Oh, geez.
Read it. You see how NBC News wrote it, right? Mm-hmm. Was found to have sexually abused and defamed her last year.
Yeah, it should say who was last year, found to have
abused her. Yeah. And if you actually want to write real news, you would say, writer E. Jean Carroll will testify in the second damages trial against former President Trump, who was found in a trial last year to have sexually abused her in the 1990s.
Dude, this is NBC, man. That's gruesome.
NBC, that's not surprising. They are the most evil propaganda smear merchants that we have. Their whole disinformation news team, where even 538, Nate Silver, a bunch of other journalists and J school professors constantly call out the NBC news team because they actually fabricate things and win awards for doing it. And then people are like, this is remarkable. They're just outright lying all the time.
Clarity and accuracy are supposed to be things that they go for. Like, that's supposed to be the point of journalism and news, is so that way they can make things, understandable for the average person, and they do nothing of the sort.
Let me show you this story from a Post-Millennial. Trump dares judge in E. Jean Carroll defamation case to kick him out of court. He actually did. So the judge says, Mr. Trump, I hope I don't have to consider excluding you from the trial. I understand you were probably very eager for me to do that. Trump said, I would love it, waving his hands. I can imagine he's going like this with his hands. I know you would, because you just can't control yourself in this circumstance. Trump says, you can't either. The threat came after Carroll's attorney, Sean Crowley, had raised issue with Trump speaking loudly, potentially loud enough to be heard by the jury. The court is not allowing Trump to provide evidence that she is likely lying.
Yeah.
So like with Alex Jones, this is what they do. They create a fake reason why this is said and done. You get no chance to defend yourself. And the trial you're actually allowed to argue is, how much money do you owe? So with Alex Jones, they said he defamed these families. Jones's legal team said Alex never actually called them out by name. He was vaguely referring to people in these cases. And what happens is the court said, turn over these documents. They do. The court says, okay, turn over the documents. And Alex goes, I did. And said, no, you didn't. Well, here are the documents again. Then the court says, if you don't turn over those documents, we're going to hold you in default. And so Alex's legal team goes, here are the documents. Here's all of them. Here's everything. And they go, well, you didn't give us the documents. Default judgment. Bang. That's what happened to Alex Jones. So when they actually went to trial, the trial we saw was to determine the amount Alex would owe. You didn't know that, Phil?
No, I didn't.
Jones never had a trial as to whether or not he defamed the family.
I didn't know that he gave them the paperwork 3 times and they
probably
just
more than that.
Said no.
They kept saying, you're excluding documents. You're not giving us what we asked for. And Alex kept saying, I've given you everything. I have nothing else to give. And they said summary judgment for the plaintiffs, Alex Jones. The next court case we're going to have is how much money you owe.
I had no
So
idea.
every time we watched a video clip of Alex arguing, he would say something like, I didn't do that. Stop. You've already been found liable. You cannot deny the accusation. Now,
wow.
As to what we were saying, this is the game they're playing. You take a look at what they're doing in the fraud case for Donald Trump in New York City. The goal here is to strip him of all of his assets.
Yeah.
They dissolved his company. They ruled that it's done. Summary judgment, Trump committed fraud, over. No defense. Donald Trump will not get a chance to defend himself and prove his innocence. No matter what anyone says from this point, the court has already determined that Trump has committed fraud. Now, the court case we're going to have is, did he forge business documents, and how much does he owe, and what will the damages be? So then when Trump brings in financial institution experts and things like that who say, not only did we make a lot of money, and not only did Donald Trump do this, literally everyone does it and everyone is happy with it. They go, that's fine. It doesn't matter. We've already determined that he is liable for this. He's guilty. So your testimony is meaningless because we are not here to determine the guilt of Donald Trump. We've already determined that. That's what they're doing here. So Trump telling the judge, speaking out and yelling against him. I mean, we are already at this point. I was talking to a lawyer 2 years ago, maybe, about filing a lawsuit. And what they said was, okay, what state you filing in? You file it in Maryland, you'll lose. Democrat judges are going to laugh at your face. I said, West Virginia. And they go, oh, okay, yeah, West Virginia, you'll win. Because conservative judges will agree with you. And I was like, that's really it, isn't it? Like, oh, venue's everything. It used to be, it always mattered So you'd figure out what's the best venue for the lawsuit, where you have to have standing. They have to have the right jurisdiction, and then you want to find a place where you're likely to get a good judge who will agree with your arguments. Nowadays, it's civil war, baby. I'm saying that figuratively, but it's basically like if you are trying to sue a Democrat in a Democrat state, you're going to lose. Just no question. You walk in and you're going to be like, I have video evidence of this guy smashing my car with a sledgehammer, screaming, I am doing this for no reason, and I will never pay you back for it. And the judge will go, interesting. And you'll say, the guy who did it is wearing a Biden shirt and I'm wearing a Trump hat. He's going to be like, I just think that there's more to the story, so I'm going to dismiss the case. That's basically the way the game is played now.
Yeah. So don't bring up politics?
I don't think there's anything you can do about it.
Because as soon as if you get picked up for anything, the DA is going to start looking through your history. And
that's criminal.
Yeah.
Yes, but and so what happens there is like in D.C. with the J6ers, good luck facing down a D.C. far left jury. You could prove definitively. I mean, come on. Jack Posobiec gets punched by an Antifa guy.
Yep.
Police witness it, and then the Antifa people go, I didn't see anything. Nothing happened.
Yep.
You will have a jury of your peers in D.C. and they're all liberals, and there can be a video of you of you proving your innocence, and then they're going to be like, but he's a Trump supporter, and they're going to be like, he's guilty. Lock him up. We don't care.
The prosecutors don't even file charges in those incidents. I mean, even over this weekend when we saw out in front of the White House, I mean, protesters, the pro-Palestine protesters were literally threatening to break into the White House and shaking the fence to get in, and Secret Service is on the other side pushing it back.
Insurrection.
Zero. Yeah, zero. Border Hawk reported, too, that there was an individual who pulled a knife, and that person, zero, still, no arrest. And the DOJ didn't respond when I reached out. They don't care. It's just different venues. They just don't care.
Yeah. If you have the right politics, you can get away with almost anything.
And Republicans are just so weak.
Yeah, they don't.
I'm sorry, dude. Like, this is why they say far right and extremist, because Republicans are basically like the Democrats' gimps.
Yeah.
And the Democrats are dragging them by the collar. I'll give you an example. Simple question. And I know Phil knows the answer to this. Phil, does the Second Amendment protect the right of children to keep and bear arms? He is nodding yes.
Well, yeah. I mean, I thought you were asking for
No.
Yes, of course it does.
Yeah, the answer is yes.
Yes.
Children have always had guns, and the issue now is not whether or not they keep and bear arms, but parental supervision. This is what happened with Kyle Rittenhouse. The law said that as a minor, he was allowed to keep and bear certain guns. Certain other guns are regulated. The issue of regulation that's been found in the Supreme Court is that regulating which weapons you can carry is not an infringement on your constitutional rights, meaning children do have the right to keep and bear arms. However, the Supreme Court recognizes restrictions on how and when they can keep and bear arms. The next question, do private individuals, or I should say this, does the Second Amendment guarantee the right of the private individual in the United States to keep and bear nuclear weapons? The answer is yes, because who do you think makes them? It is large private corporations that manufacture all of these missiles and warships and drones. The drones carrying the Hellfire missiles, they're not made by the government. They're made by private corporations who own them and sell them to the government. The Second Amendment protects all of that. So when people are like, the Second Amendment never protected your right to hold canons, what are you talking about? Boeing's got Hellfire missiles. Is it Boeing that makes the Reaper drone? Who makes the Reaper drone? Lockheed?
Lockheed Martin.
Yeah, me.
Is it Lockheed?
I think
All I know, it's like, dude, it's the military-industrial complex producing all these weapons. And under corporate law, they are private citizens. They are private persons for the purpose of ownership.
Yeah, like they
General
build,
Atomics that builds the
General Atomics?
MQ-9 Reaper.
There's a lot of times where the military will go to a company and be like, look, this is a goal that we have or a machine that we want you to build. But also there's a lot of times where like the private sector will build something and present it to the DOD and be like, check out this gadget that we came up with. And the DOD is like, check out these dollars we just printed here. Take them.
The point here is that I can talk to even the most ardent of Republican congresspeople, and they will say, no, I don't think people should have the right to keep and bear nuclear weapons. And I'm like, okay, so we can start by shutting down the capability of any private corporation for building a nuke. Only under strict government control can weapons be manufactured. Like, let's look, because look, obviously nuke is extreme, and the way you go about it. Anyone who whenever we have someone who's like a gun manufacturer, or gun shop owner, FFL, they're like, yeah, there's a form you can fill out for when you're making a weapon if it's a nuclear weapon or not, because corporations do this. So okay, the idea there would be if the Second Amendment only protects the keeping and bearing of arms, like small guns and stuff. we got to shut down Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Raytheon, et cetera. All of them just shut down overnight or nationalize them. That means all your precious stock is gone and worthless. Should we nationalize? Well, I guess they'll buy you out. But do we want to nationalize these military-industrial complex companies?
No, we don't.
Yeah. So unless any of these individuals in Congress think we should, then they absolutely agree the Second Amendment protects those rights. My point is this. Republicans are Democrats' gimps. They're on leashes being dragged around. And it's fascinating when we have even Freedom Caucus individuals come in on this show and they don't know these things. And I'm like, if you're taking the approach that the Second Amendment doesn't protect nuclear weapons, you are basically in the middle. You are a moderate leftist in terms of constitutionalism. And there are a lot of people who are like, I'm right wing on the Second Amendment. And I'm like, no, you're not. And we had someone on the show who was like, I will not be out Second Amendmented by Tim Pool or whatever. It was really funny. I think it was a member. I can't remember who it was. Maybe you guys listening do. But this is my point. When it comes to what we know they are doing with the insurrection in front of the White House that just happened this past weekend, trying to rip down the barricades, pulling a knife, or even the 529 insurrection. My point and why I bring this up is that Republicans right now could launch an investigation committee into the insurrection at the White House today and say, what is going on with this? And they have the perfect backdrop. Pro-Hamas protesters.
Yeah.
Now, of course, you could make the argument they're not really. My point is this. The J6 protesters weren't insurrectionists, but they say they are. Why aren't Republicans coming out right now, passing all these resolutions, putting together committees saying we must investigate the pro-Hamas cells of far-left extremists that have just attacked the White House? Because they're weak, and they will be weak, and even the ones that you think are good are still middle of the road.
It's a lot of the Republican Party as a holdover from when the Republicans were the war machine, the military-industrial complex arm with the George Bush Jr. era. And then Obama came in and they all kind of went over to that Democratic Party. So I think that's why a lot of the older people are still like beholden to the military-industrial complex. I mean, the country is like a militocracy. It's just like an arms dealer. This country is like, we export military equipment and dollars backed by our military. And what else? Wheat, sugar, flour, and oil. That's about it.
No,
well,
we export a whole lot more stuff
corn.
than just that. We export a lot more than that.
Culture.
We don't export as much as we used to, but we definitely export way more than just like a handful of things.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.